Today I'm starting and I'm doing what I believe is going to be a two-part series, and I call it Workplace Secrets. But I'll focus on two characters in the Bible. One is Daniel and the other is David. And so today I'll speak about Daniel. We have established that your workplace is a sacred place where you can unleash your God-given talents and potential and lead you into a life of fulfillment and purpose. Your workplace is a platform for creating wealth with integrity, prosperity, and securing a brighter future. So every time we talk about wealth, we are speaking about God's ordained platform for creating wealth. That is through work. However, work can be a very challenging terrain, and it requires a lot of wisdom to be able to navigate to emerge victorious. So if the devil is going to attack your future, one of the major areas he will attack is your ability to work. And even when you start working, he will do a lot of things to frustrate your work, give you shortcuts, give you ways that will embarrass you and take away the glory from the Lord. Today we shall, using the example of Daniel's experience, unlock some work secrets. So we are going to take the example of Daniel chapter 1, and we are going to read from verses 1 to 5. Daniel is a Jewish exile in Babylon who is competing against trained Babylonians for a spot in King Nebuchadnezzar's advisory team. Just imagine that you are a fresh graduate who's come from school. You are armed with a lot of enthusiasm, newfound skills, and you face rejection after rejection in a highly competitive market. Or imagine that you've traveled as a refugee or immigrant, having survived the trauma of war. You are now competing against the seasoned locals for a coveted government positions. In both cases, you will have to overcome obstacles to secure the job in a fiercely competitive landscape. And I'm sure this speaks to a lot of us who have come out of school. You are looking for a job, you want to work, and it's as if the job market seems closed and you are facing rejection after rejection. How did Daniel succeed? What were the requirements that Daniel had to overcome to be able to leverage his unique skills and knowledge? The first thing you need to understand is that access to the corridors of power or to work or to wealth is a very controlled access. So there are passwords and codes to give you access to power. And if you don't have the codes and the passwords, you'll find out that a future is blocked. You can be very close to power and not have access to it. And wherever there is power and there is wealth, believe you me, there'll be gatekeepers and power brokers who control access to power, and you have to be able to connect with the right people in order to have access to the sources of power. Sometimes you have people who also get a job and they don't even know what to do to progress. As if you get a job, the door is open, but you are always at the door. You are stuck. And so what I'm going to share with you today and next week is very critical, and you need to master these things. I've told you that prosperity is not a game, and it's not for jokers, and it's not for people who are casual. If you want to prosper, you've got to start getting serious about your studies, about learning things, and about stepping into new areas. So we have looked at various codes. Excellence, for example, will open doors. Your character and the quality of your work will also bring you to the attention of kings. But I want you to turn your Bible to Daniel chapter 1, and let's read the first 4 verses. Are you there? In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem, and he besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with part of the vessel of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his God. And he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. And the king spake unto Aspenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes. Verse 4. Children in whom there was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning in knowledge, and understanding and science, and such as had the ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning tongue of the Chaldeans. The NIV makes it a bit more simple, and if you have verses 3 and 4 in the NIV version, you can read it. But basically, the commentary shows that Daniel was a citizen of a conquered people. His nation had been defeated in war, and he found himself as a spoil of war, and he moved from Judah to Babylon. The interesting twist as you read the book of Daniel is that God is playing a role in this whole equation. If God had to take sides, he should have favored his people, the Israelites, or Judah. He should be on the side of Judah. But it is God who gives Judah to Babylon. And remember, Babylon is a pagan nation. But God is taking his people into captivity in Babylon. And the Bible says that when Nebuchadnezzar conquered Judah, he took the articles and vessels from the house of God to the house of his God. Now, to all intents and purposes, if you're standing afar back and judging it, you'll say that Daniel is a loser. His nation has lost a war. His king has lost. And to an extent, you can say that his God has been conquered because the vessels in the house of his God is taken to the house of gods in Babylon. So you can imagine Daniel finding himself in Babylon with a very low self-esteem, maybe angry and frustrated. Because everything you seem to believe in, your faith, your belief in God, seems to have been overcome. The God you trusted in seems to have been conquered. The king you believed in has lost a battle. You have been taken captive, and you are now a servant of Nebuchadnezzar, who is a pagan king. You've lost your family. Your life has been disrupted. You are captured and a stranger in a foreign land. How many people would expect to do well in that kind of environment? Yet in Babylon, we find Daniel rising to heights that he could not have attained if he was in Judah. He rose higher in Babylon than he would have risen in Judah. In Babylon, Daniel's life is greatly and profoundly influenced by two very important individuals. And I want you to listen carefully. The first is Nebuchadnezzar. He is the king, the monarch. You may not like Nebuchadnezzar, but you need to understand who he is and how Nebuchadnezzar will affect your life. So imagine you find yourself in an environment where the boss doesn't believe what you believe. He's the reason why you are disadvantaged in life. Will you let your emotions play into a work situation, or you will learn how to stand and believe God and allow the covenant principles of God to take you through life? And unfortunately, many people fail because you don't like the boss, so because of that, you won't work. You don't like the person because he's the reason why maybe you lost something or something negative happened to you, or you lost a business and you are going through some wahala in a place you never thought. Life seemed to have been going very rosy until Nebuchadnezzar came over your life. Nebuchadnezzar is strong. He's powerful. He's an expansionist. And at the height of his power, you will call him the greatest leader of the known world. He was expanding his territories. And whether Daniel likes it or not, Nebuchadnezzar, the idol worshiper, will influence his destiny. So many of us may have to deal with Nebuchadnezzar. Sometimes you may have to deal with a government you don't like. Sometimes you may have to do the headmistress you don't like. Sometimes you don't like your MP, but do you freeze your life? Sometimes it may be somebody even in your family or in your school, somebody who has leadership over you, who influences you, and you don't like. Do you settle to a life of misery? Or in the midst of that, can you find God and let him help you? So the first person is Nebuchadnezzar. The second person who is going to influence Daniel's destiny is a man called Aspenaz. Aspenaz is a eunuch, but he's a mentor and a power mover around Nebuchadnezzar. So Nebuchadnezzar is at the top, but he has a henchman called Aspenaz. The role of Aspenaz is to identify talent for the king. So you will not meet Nebuchadnezzar directly, but the person you will meet who is acting under the orders of Nebuchadnezzar is the man called Aspenaz. There are people who are very talented who may never amount to anything in life. Because the harsh truth is that your talent is not everything. Your certificate is not everything. Talent is overrated. No matter how exceptional your skills may be, without the right opportunities and exposure, they go unnoticed. Consider that the world's greatest footballer is not necessarily the most talented player, but the one who was discovered by a scout. Similarly, a phenomenal singer or a talented dancer can remain unknown until somebody like Aspenaz recognizes his potential. The reality is that those who rise to the top aren't often the most skilled, but rather the ones who were discovered. Else, even the most extraordinary talent can remain hidden forever. Just as Daniel's talents were recognized by Aspenaz, our gifts require the right people and the circumstances to flourish. Let's look at verse 3 again. Then the kings ordered Aspenaz, chief of his court officials, to bring in some of the Israelites from the royal family and the nobility. So the person whose eye you have to catch at that stage is not Nebuchadnezzar, it's Aspenaz. So Aspenaz is the gatekeeper. I remember a few years ago, somebody wanted to come and see me, and at the gate, the person said, I want to see Pastor Bernard. And the person walked in, and I think one of the secretaries was around, and she tried to ask the person questions, and the person misbehaved towards the lady who was at the reception. And immediately closed the door. Because of that, the person never had access into my office. Sometimes you walk into a place and you want to see the boss, but believe you me, if the security man doesn't like you, if the receptionist doesn't like you, they can close the door and you may never have access to what you want. Sometimes you go to a place and the top man doesn't want to see you, and the security man or the receptionist is the one who has to take your application and make sure that it gets to your boss. So if you don't learn to recognize an Aspenaz, and you don't learn how to catch his eye and treat him well, you may be talented, but you will never get beyond the reception. Is somebody heard me? Okay. So you may be gifted, but just as Daniel's talents were recognized by Aspenaz, our gifts and our abilities require that we be recognized by the right persons. Don't rely solely on talent. Seek opportunities. Learn how to network, because relationships matter. Persistence and hard work will increase your chances of discovery. You find people who are very well educated, yet they are going nowhere. You find people who are very talented, and then everybody knows they are talented, but they won't amount to much. Why? Because they don't understand the role of Aspenaz. May you find your Aspenaz, the one who will unlock your potential and bring you to the corridors of power. That connection is crucial. Many gifted people remain unseen, unemployed, not because they don't have the ability, but they lack discovery. Is somebody with me? Okay. David, for example, was a very skilled warrior, but he needed Samuel's recognition to be able to rise to a position of prominence. Your breakthrough in life depends on the right person noticing you. When it comes to accessing the corridors of power, it is beyond skill, certificate, talent, and ability. A critical person is the role of Aspenaz in your life. All the slaves who had been captured from Judah rested on this man called Aspenaz. He was the only person Nebuchadnezzar will reach out to for his endorsement. So woe unto you if Aspenaz doesn't like you. If Aspenaz eliminates you, you will remain confined to slave quarters the rest of your life. Did you hear me? I heard a story of a young man who came down to Ghana and wanted to marry, and he kept asking. He went to a house and he would ask the people selling newspapers and Kelewele about a particular girl in a community. And the man said he couldn't reach the girl directly, but he spoke to people you may not consider much. And the good thing about it is they said, this girl is a very nice girl. Every time she's passing by, she's very courteous, she's very well behaved, she will greet us and treat us nicely. You see the Aspenas connection. Sometimes you think, because I'm nice, because I'm beautiful, but you are rude to everybody around you. You don't respect people because you think they are nothing. You walk by people, you don't greet them. Because usually, the Aspenas people, they are around you, and believe you me, you don't know them. Seriously. And if what I think I know is right, many young men, before they approach a lady, they will ask a question or two. What do you think about? Is she nice? Even before the woman may accept, she may ask Aspenas around you. What do you think about this young man who has proposed? Is he a good man? And if Aspenas decides your fate, make sure it's a good one. Maybe you sell. Somebody will say, what do you think about the watches seller there? Is it good? Because everybody kind of thrives on recommendation. Do you know a place where I can get a good tailor? That's your Aspenas. Do you know where I can get a good teacher? Do you know where I can get somebody to do this for me on my wedding? Or somebody to cater for me? But you find out that many people want Nebuchadnezzar, but they ignore Aspenas. And in captivity, the destiny of all the slaves depend on Aspenas. They have to catch his eye. And many times, the people whose eye you must catch may be so much around you, and yet they don't advertise themselves. So even in a conversation, they say things that you may never hear, but they may determine your future. Today, we're going to look at the Babylonian system. Nebuchadnezzar utilized 3 key categories to identify potential recruits for the corridors of power. And all of us will have to understand that when you are stepping out into your future, the world system has 3 major categories to judge you by. And believe you me, if you don't qualify, you may be confined outside the system. Is somebody here with me? Is somebody here with me this morning? What is the first category? The first category is what I call the physical form. Daniel chapter 1, verse 3. Then the king instructed Aspenas, the master of his eunuchs, to bring some of the children of Israel and some of the king's descendants and some of the nobles. So look at it. The king instructed Aspenas that he should bring certain of the children of Israel and of the king's seed and of the princes. Look at verse 4. Read verse 4 with me. Children in whom was no blemish. Wow. The NIV says, young men in whom there was no blemish, but good looking. So the Babylonian system values physical attractiveness. You know, you've come out of school. You are a certain age. Listen and listen carefully. That is not the time to mess up your life. What you do, especially when you come out of school, and who you are, and the character you are formed, has a lot to determine who you will become. So the king said, the managing director said, the company said, I want fresh graduates. I want to employ people. But I'm going to apply people who have a certain physical form. Because the Babylonian system or the world system values physical attractiveness. Prioritizing youth people, young people, blemish-free individuals. Whilst talent is important, physical appearance is also a significant factor. So you find a young man who comes out of school. He hasn't learned how to keep himself clean. He dresses anyhow because he thinks it's fashion. He's going to work. He dresses in some jeans and he doesn't even comb his hair. He's cut his hair, mohawk, wearing some dark shades with some long chain. He's qualified. He has a degree. But believe you me, the Babylonian system will shut you out. You see, there are some things that people argue about. What is wrong with my dressing? After I'm free, I can dress anywhere. You see, people may never tell you that they disqualified you because of the way you dress or the way you look or your hairstyle. But believe you me, it is a factor. And I'm showing you. Because there are a lot of young men who in today's world think dressing doesn't matter. You are going for an interview, you are wearing a t-shirt with some slogan on it, fix the country. I know you want to fix the country, but if you are going for an interview, that's not the time to send that message. I know you are going for an interview, but you are wearing a party t-shirt. Because you believe that, yes, you must stand for your rights. But you find out that the world system rejects you and say no to or say yes to LGBT. Okay? When the Bible said the king instructed Asphena, it says, young men in whom there's no blemish, but good looking. Physical appearance as a young person is a very important part. Listen, church. And I want you to listen, young men. Because many of you are coming out of school, you are qualified, you are going to enter into a system where you will compete. And one of the first criteria is your physical appearance, even before they listen to you. Did you hear that? Okay. So the good thing is that as for looks and presentation, it can be enhanced. You can enhance your posture. You can enhance your grooming. You can enhance your presentation and your attire. Woe unto you if you are talented and qualified, but ugly. You don't know how to look after yourself. You don't learn how to groom yourself. Your haircut is somewhere. Your dressing, matching color style is somewhere. Your everything about you. You are qualified, you have a certificate. But unfortunately, the door is closed. Good looks can be manufactured by the way you dress, by the way you present yourself, by the way you stand, by your posture, by the way you wash yourself, and by the way you smell. As for the Babylonian system or the world system, they judge appearance. It doesn't judge character. God looks to the heart. He's the only one who has the capacity to do that. Man judges you by what he sees. The logic is that when you have value on the inside, it will reflect in your outside. If a person is organized mentally, he will be organized externally. Asphena is going to judge you by his standard. And the standard is look for people who are young without blemish. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Okay. So you cannot be a young man, forgive me, and think that you can wear anything at any time to any place. Because it will matter whether the door will open or the door will shut. A word to the wise is enough. So you've had to learn to present yourself professionally and intentionally. You see, people will, they ask when a young lady or a woman or somebody comes to church and you are unemployed. That may be your husband. I say, oh, this guy, just by his dressing, he's decent. He's a young man with potential. So let me refer him to a job. So your husband is around you. But he hasn't advertised himself. Because he looks at you the way you dress, your punctuality, your professionalism, and he says, let me keep my mouth shut. And then the door is closed and you are confined back to a slave mentality. Did you hear me? I hope you can hear. Understand the importance of first impressions and recognize the interplay between your inner character and your outward appearance. That's the first thing. The second thing that Nebuchadnezzar's recruitment strategy revolves around is social class and leadership. In verse 3, the king instructed the Aspenas, the master of the eunuchs, that they should bring certain of the children of Israel and of the king's seat and of the princes. So you find out that Aspenas now has to look and say, who are those who have class, who are well cultured? They sit down well, they behave themselves well, they are polite, they have a certain culture. They behave themselves well. So in ancient Babylon, leadership was often hereditary, with kingship and royalty passing down through bloodlines. I can see you are looking at me and I'm also looking at you. Because if you want to enter the world system, you want to get a job, you want to be able to survive, I'm showing you some of the secrets in the workplace. Present yourself well. Have a good haircut. Learn how to match proper colors. Dress like somebody who is serious. Have you seen somebody who dresses seriously before? Abuaji, please stand up. Please come. So if I asked you, you are going for an interview with Abuaji, I'm wearing a bubu, and Abuaji is dressed like this, and we are going to look for a position as a bank manager. Believe you me, you look at us. Or assume I wear a t-shirt and a canvas, and I say, that's all I have. You stop talking like that if you want to be able to enter. You stop talking like that. So we are praying. Hey, la, ba, 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 open doors. But you see, the world system doesn't listen to prayer. The world system judges you on your appearance. You say, that's my hairstyle. Okay. You see, at a certain point, we won't argue. Have you wondered why certain professions, certain things are not allowed? Because the door will close. So if you want to be a worker, you have to understand. And I'll teach you about David. Because when David was being looked for, one of the things that they said was that David is a nice, young, handsome man. So I've asked myself, how is it that they're always talking about young people, handsome people, presentable people? And you have a generation of young people who are just rowdy. They may be prayerful, but how do you get them into a work environment? You start learning how to invest in yourself. Because Aspenas is looking for you. So, when the king told Aspenas, look for people who have come from a certain background of social class. Because when you come from a certain background, there are things that you naturally learn. One of it is table manners. Using the correct utensils, napkin placement, and posture. You know how to sit down. You don't sit down before elders and cross your legs and Charlie how and talk anyhow under the guise of democracy. You take it into a workplace and see if anybody will employ you. You go for an interview, you cross your legs. I remember there's a young man who came to my office. And so I came from upstairs and met him down. When I came to the office, he was lying down on my couch with his legs up. He just looked, Pastor, how? I didn't say anything. But whatever he wanted was totally over. Addressing superiors. There's a time you must learn how to use the right language and say, yes, sir. Your Majesty. Your Ladyship. Using formal language. You can't go everywhere and do pade. You see, that's why sometimes I talk about the way you sit in church. Because some of you come to church and it's like, you sit down, you don't realize that you're in a formal environment. You go to a meeting and you don't realize the formal environment. And some of the guests, you sit down, then you open your mouth, you are yawning. No, there are some habits, believe you me, nobody will tell you, it will close the door. During the meeting, you just get up and pick a phone call. You tell me if you enter into any serious workplace. I know some bankers, once you enter into the bank, you can't even receive calls. You can't do WhatsApp. So some of the practices that you indulge in, you are not a bad person. You are not under demonic attack. But the Babylonian system doesn't open the door to people like that. You must learn how to greet. You enter into an office, Charlie, Pastor, how? Then you slap the person because you know the person in your house. So you come and slap the person, Charlie, how? Charlie, yeah. Then you do, that handshake. There comes a time when you walk into an office, you say, yes, sir. You don't sit down till you are asked to sit. And when you sit in a certain way. Because you understand a formal environment. Is somebody learning something this morning? Mm-hmm. Because you understand a formal environment. You understand when to use formal language. You avoid slang. You avoid jargon. You avoid colloquialism. You learn how to pay attention. And you show that you are attentive. When your boss is speaking to you, you are attentive. You are serious. You are writing notes. You are paying attention to details. Not when you are in the workplace and your boss is talking to you, you're on the phone sending WhatsApp and laughing and giggling. And you come to church and come and worry us. Pastor, demons are worrying me. Pray for me to get a job. And then diplomatic speech. How to tactfully express opinions and disagreements. In a certain environment, you can't use any language. So I remember I sat before a certain gentleman, and then he spoke for a while, and then he says, what do you think? I don't agree with what he said. Do you know what I said? I said, please, I'm not too clear. Can you explain it a bit more? Then he took his time and explained. I said, oh, I see. Me, I don't agree. This one there, I don't agree. He's a fool. You see, there's a language you don't speak. You don't speak your mind. You speak wisdom. So you're a young man growing up in an environment where everybody talks by heart. So you go for an interview and you are asked a tricky question. Then you make a loose statement. And they say, if this guy talks about authority that way, what would he say about me when I'm not there? Then you get the interview, go back. You have a certificate, you are qualified, door closed. Because you don't understand what opens the doors. Number one, somebody who's good looking and young. But when people are good looking and young, they think it's an excuse to misbehave. Number two, social class. You've learned some things. One of the interviews we had many years ago when I was looking for a manager's job was after the interview, then they sent us to a restaurant. Hi. And many jobs, you see, because as you go up, a lot of decisions will be taken over food at a certain level. How you eat, how you use the fork. Every day you are looking for takeaway. Every day you are licking your fingers and using your fingers. You don't know how to, you've never learned how. In fact, when they bring a fork and knife, no, achi care. When they bring you salad, mini journey, mini ubaye. When you eat and then you spit into the, no, you see, you have to learn all. And there are many people, especially in church, who think all we need is prayer. Hey, hey, hey. There's no development, personal grooming. And you find out that you may be a good worker, but you can't progress. Because your core skills may give you a job. But believe you me, what takes you to the top is a lot of finer details of life. The way you speak, the way you behave, the way you solve a problem, your communication skills. So you may be the best, but you can't get there. Then there's the dress code. Formal attire. Wearing suits. Wearing ties. Dressing suitable for high society events. You know, isn't it interesting that sometimes you see people who have been invited to a diplomatic or ambassadorial meeting and you look at the dressing. Somebody is wearing jeans and canvas because you feel free. Listen, there are places you need to wear a suit and a tie. It's not everywhere you wear bikini and beach dress. So as you grow, you begin to learn what is appropriate attire for an appropriate event. You want doors to open? Grooming. Maintaining neat hair. You do your hair for how many years? You don't wash it. You comb your hair anyhow. You don't trim your nails. And you don't polish your shoes. I'll tell you something. One of the things that people will look at, especially if you're a young man, your belt and your shoes. Your nails. Every day, your nails, you don't do manicure and pedicure. Your nails are dirty. And your hands are rough. When you touch somebody's hand, say, hey. When you shake somebody's hands, they are wondering whether your smell. You know, there are some interviews when you listen to somebody and the person opens his mouth, you fall under the anointing. You are going for an interview, you are chewing gum. Then you blow them and then you burst it. Am I preaching this morning? You want to get a job? You want to enter into the system? Outside the system, you can be very good, but nobody's minding you. You can be saying, I'm even better than them, but they got in. I cook better, but they got in. I play better, but they got in. And you must learn how to wear tasteful jewelry, watches and cufflinks. Wow. In the context of Nebuchadnezzar's recruitment strategy, you learn appearance and you learn how to walk with class and show leadership. Hello? So first, we've spoken about the physical form. Take good care of yourself. Dress well, smell well, groom yourself. Secondly, social class. Develop yourself. Learn new things that will complement your job. It's very important. The third Nebuchadnezzar's recruitment strategy revolves around mental aptitude. Verse 4. Read verse 4 with me, and I end with that. Children in whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom and cunning in knowledge, and understanding science. Look at the three words there: wisdom, knowledge, understanding. Wisdom, knowledge, understanding. And such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace. So they had the ability to, they are not kings, but they can stand before kings. They dress before kings. Their mannerisms are before kings. They are young, they are just fresh graduates, but they can stand before kings. That is what gives you an advantage. That even though you have classmates, you distinguish yourself in the fact that you can stand before superiors. You can behave before them. They may be more educated than you. They may be more talented than you. They may have first class and you have third class, but you can stand before kings. Somebody hear me? I want to ask you a question. Can you stand before kings? Because that's the test. There are many people who are looking for jobs. They can't stand before an interview panel. You enter into the room, everybody disqualifies you mentally. You may have Apple, but they say, But Daniel enters with Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. And the Bible says that they distinguished themselves so much that they were 10 times better than other people. You see, you can't go into the world, we are the same. You must have something that makes you better than other people. If you cook, you must have something that makes you better. If you sew, you must have something that makes you better. If you sing, you must have something that makes you better. If you preach, you must have something that makes you better. And it no longer matters whether you are from Choco, but they can't deny you because they compare you to the people around you. They find you much, much, much better. And the Bible says that King Nebuchadnezzar, the third thing he looked for was the mental aptitude. He said, look for young men gifted in all wisdom, possessing knowledge and quick to understand. It means that you must have exceptional wisdom. You must know your stuff. You must have quick understanding. You must be clever and astute. And you don't need a lot of supervision. When they give instructions, you immediately understand them. Not that you go and do the wrong thing and come back and say, what did you say? I forgot. I didn't hear. You want to stand before kings? You want the door to open before you? Because I'll tell you something. Kings don't have time to supervise. So when you enter into the palace, that is not everybody in the palace is an expert. So nobody has time to now come and teach you. So you must be a quick learner. You learn quickly. You must have poise. You must have confidence. You must have refined manners for the king's court. So Nebuchadnezzar is looking for individuals who have wisdom. It means they have broad knowledge and discernment. They have knowledge. They are informed and they are perceptive. And they have understanding. Quick grasp of complex concepts. You enter into the palace. Maybe you are driving with your boss to town to go and do something. I'll tell you something. Your boss will make an impression of you as you sit in the car. I know you are tired, but when you're in the car with your boss, you don't sleep. You don't receive phone calls and be chatting. You've got to learn how to behave before kings. You've got to learn how to behave yourself. And this is where many people fail. You are a stranger in Bank of Ghana. You are a stranger in Unilever. You are now entering. But the door is already shut. They employ other people and say, they don't like me. They are doing partial because the wealth system is very different. You have to master what the world is looking for and beat them at it. So I look at some of you sometimes, come to church the way you sit down, come to church the way you behave, and I say, Father, help us. Help us. I look at the way you dress. Good person, but your dressing disqualifies you from the palace. I look at the way you come to church. Good person, but always late. I look at the way you behave around kings. I look at the way you behave around food. I look at the way you combine your colors. Good person. But the Nebuchadnezzar system is going to judge you based on your youthfulness without blemish. It's going to judge you based on your social class, things you have learned to behave yourself well. And it's going to look at your mental aptitude. If you don't have it, you will pray a lot. You won't go far. For example, you want to be a cell leader. You have hopes of becoming a pastor. You look at these three things. Other pastors come, how do you behave around them? Visitors come to church, how do you behave? Yet you have a title of a pastor, but you find out that nobody wants you around. Because your cell meetings, the way you organize it, Shepherd Summit, the way you behave, no class. No mental aptitude. You know, sometimes at the top, one of the things you learn is communication during network. You meet important people. Hey, as for me, I'm shy. I don't want to talk to any of them. I don't know them. So you must learn to say hello, introduce yourself, chit-chat. Where do you work? This is who I am. This is where I work. It's not a gift. You learn it. Every time they call you, you are giggling like some small, and you are scratching your head like some cat. No. No. I told you, prosperity is not for jokers. You may come from the bush, but you stay in the bush. You are believing God, but you don't qualify. Because faith without works is dead. So think about yourself. And then they said that in whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. You see, the NIV says the language and the literature. I may talk about it next week. Because one of the things I found out is people are not able to express themselves well. You see why, as a pastor, I carefully script everything I'm going to say now. Because I want the ability to express myself well. You ask person, what is wrong with you? Before you answer a question, what is that? You go for an interview. What's the greatest achievement you've made in your life? Why do you start a sentence with No, I'm serious. What's wrong with you? And you think that if I'm shy, pastor, it's because I'm shy, and you put your head down, then you smile and look. At a serious meeting, this is your attitude? Are you joking? Prosperity doesn't joke. I told you, so if you come to church and you think church is a joke, you come anytime, you sit anyhow, you write anything, you walk out anytime. You see, prosperity is a serious venture. You go for Bible study. You have 10 questions, and they give you 1 hour. After 1 hour, you're still on question 1. That's not how to work for kings. And you think I have a poor? No, that's not how to work for kings. And you want to be the boardroom secretary. They give you something to type. They have a board meeting tomorrow. It takes you. No. So you find out that at most top positions, one of the conditions is your ability to work under pressure and to meet deadlines. Every one of you, if we are all going to rise up, there must be a paradigm shift to prepare us to face the world, to enter and penetrate the system, and to rule. But we must be more professional. We must have the class. We must have the youth and the appearance